Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever it is that you're listening or watching this. Really quick one, slightly different from the revision recordings I've done so far. In this one, I want you to just take a minute and stop and think about the strategies that you might have for answering questions. A couple of years ago, teaching a subject very similar to this one, actually, I spoke to a number of very disappointed and stressed students after an exam because they felt like the exam covered something that they hadn't actually studied. Now, I'm not a psychopath. That was absolutely not the case. And the issue wasn't that it didn't cover part of the course. It was more around they didn't really stop and pay attention to what the question was asking them for. So I'll give you the example of the question. I may as well out myself entirely. The question related to an older practitioner who had an assistant who did conveyancing for them, and the assistant was not a qualified lawyer. This is what the facts told them. So the solicitor had decided that on their retirement that they would transfer all the conveyancing clients into the to the assistant. So the assistant would become the new owner of those files, and then all of the other work that they were doing, essentially they would wind down, or maybe they sold the practice. I can't remember. So a lot of people came to me and said afterwards, oh, that was completely not fair. We didn't look at all about how people transfer their businesses. Actually, what the question was really about, and clearly I've just given you a high-level overview, there was a fact scenario. It was really about whether or not a practitioner who had files with confidential information on them that belonged to the clients could actually give or transfer that information to someone else. And if they did, what would be required? Now, I thought I'd made it kind of easy in the sense of it wasn't about us giving legal work to somebody who wasn't qualified to do legal work, because the conveyancing aspect, it's very clear from the very unhelpful definition of what legal work is, that a person who is registered and qualified to do conveyancing is not breaching the prohibition against doing legal work. So I built that into the facts. So that clearly wasn't the problem, or not a key element of the problem anyway. There would have been points awarded for identifying that. The real problem was I've got client confidential information. I'm about to retire. I want to give it to you. In the past, you've always had access to it because you were my employee and I was supervising you, but now I'm just going to hand it over to you. Can I do that? And really, so it's a question about, well, what does the retainer say? Number one, what's a contractual relationship? Secondly, do I need to get the client's consent and provide the relevant undertakings if I'm going to transfer that information? Again, not an overly complicated problem, but the trick to answering it was making sure that you answer the right problem. Now, I don't want to scare you here. It is, like I said, I don't think I'm a psychopath anyway. It is not my intention to go out into the world and find ways to bamboozle you or trick you. But the art of writing an exam question is, if I've written a good question, students who have done the work and done the thinking should be able to answer it. And the students who really have really pushed hard or really have a particular gift or knack for this have the ability to shine and to do well. So I'm not going to say there are no trick questions. All of the questions will, to some extent, have some ability for you to stretch yourself. So strategically, think about the stretch. And so how do you do that? I'm not sure that there is any one way. Secondly, when you're using IRAC, it can be really interesting, really helpful. The really important part of using IRAC is to really identify, well, what are the legal issues that can happen here? And to go as broad as you can and to identify as many issues as you can. And then the next part is to identify, well, which of those are the most useful here? Which are the ones that are most relevant? Now, clearly, there might be legal issues that impact another area of law. I'm less interested in those when I'm examining you in relation to ethics, which is the key area that we're covering here. Then, as you move through that, look, well, what issues are going to make the biggest difference here? And what issues are going to give me the opportunity to shine? Now, don't just tell us everything you know, because telling us everything you know, I mean, at the end of the day, this is an online timed assessment. So you do have time to Google. You do have time to use Control F. It's one of the reasons why the questions might be that little bit harder than if you are in a room under a timed examination condition, because I'm not rewarding Control F. I'm rewarding the synthesis, that ability to be able to identify what the real issue is and then respond to that issue. Hope that this is helpful. It's really an encouragement for you to really be in your planning, really to gather as much as you can about what the potential issues might be so you can match them to the problems when you see them on the paper. All the best with your continuing revision, and as always, questions, concerns, frustrations, or compliments, I'm open to hearing from you. Take care.